Hey, David, Bro Lauser here with Sammy and the Wabos, having a great time with the Nothing Shocking podcast.
Welcome to the night. You think you know Night Demon? Then the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast is for you. Step into the darkness as we peel back the curtain to give you an unprecedented, all-access look into the mind and the heart of the demon. We're talking band history, song analysis, studio anecdotes, stories from the road. It's everything a diehard Night Demon fan could want and more. This is the only place to learn the inside scoop, the deep dive trivia, the untold tales from the band members themselves and those closest to the Night Demon story. Need more? The Sacred Night Demon Crypt will be pried open to reveal demo recordings that have never before seen the light of day, all with in-depth commentary by the band and the people who were there for the writing and recording process. This is a gold mine, a treasure trove of all things Night Demon. Head over to nightdemon.net or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking Podcast, a non-genre based, all ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Isn't it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking Podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied, and with me in Dog Bowl Studios is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking Podcast on Libsyn or any podcatchers. Like our Facebook page or follow us on Twitter at NoShockPod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking Podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, soon to be coming back to downtown Davenport, Iowa in July. We would like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
David Lauser
of the Sammy Hagar Band.
Yeah.
Also of Alliance with Robert Barry.
Yeah, I just discovered that with doing some research for this podcast, and there's some great music there.
Yeah.
Definitely going to be tracking that stuff down.
Talk about drummer of some legendary albums, Standing Hampton, VOA, Three Lock Box. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah.
So, hey, let's get to that interview.
I want to party just listening to the set list.
All right, man, let's get to this interview.
Good night.
Good night. Hey, David, welcome to the Nothing Shocking Podcast. I'd like to introduce you to my co-host, Jeff Untied.
David, this is going to be fun to talk to you tonight.
Hey, dude. Did I hear Jeff?
Yes. Yeah, Jeff.
Jeff and Eric. Right on.
Yes. So you have some interesting familiarity with Rock Island, Illinois, so let's go ahead and hear it.
Well, some of it's interesting and some of it's kind of goofy, but my first tour was Sammy Hagar on the Standing Hampton tour in 1982, I believe. It was my first U.S. tour. It was really exciting, and I remember we traveled by bus, and we hit a lot of places. And, they give you an itinerary.
Sure.
And I remember asking the tour manager, hey, when's the next couple of gigs? He goes, well, you're going to be in Moline and then Rock Island. I said, come on, there's no place called Rock Island. It was like, yeah, we're going to Rock Island, meaning we're going to rock it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's goofy. My second wife, who passed away from brain cancer, a few years ago, was born in Rock Island. And cool. I've been to Rock Island many times for family visits, not just to play. The Mark of the Quad, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So anyway, I know the Quad Cities like the back of my hand.
Oh, very awesome.
It's the one bend in the Mississippi that goes east and west.
Correct. Yeah. Well, you're spot on.
Very cool.
Don't even mess with me. And then there's the place. It's not the Armory. Don't tell me. The Arsenal. There's the Arsenal Bridge, and then there's an arsenal during the Civil War. You kept all the ammunition and crap.
Yeah.
And you still have that?
Oh, yeah.
Well, Jeff is an employee of the Rock Island Arsenal. So there you go.
Yeah.
So, all right. It was nice talking to you guys.
Well, hey, first of all, number one, thanks for all the correspondence. And number two, it was just excited to have you on the podcast. So kind of like, let's get right into this. Is like COVID-19 has put the damper on the music industry this past year. How have you stayed creative during the lockdown?
Well, in a way, I was blessed because, well, let me go backwards in as far as chronology. Last year, about in May 2020 or April-ish, Sammy, I can't remember when it was, but it was maybe like a little before the COVID really hit hard. It was like maybe March. He came and I bought a new house, or I should say I bought a house to remodel. And anyway, Sam came by, it's in the Inland Empire where we grew up, and he has family down here. So he happened to be driving through, and he goes, "Bro, let me come by and check out your new pad," And when he was here, I have like I have a music room set up, a studio and all that. And we jammed a little. We didn't really jam. We just kind of tinkered. And he said, and I had this real quiet drum set so that I wouldn't bug anybody or have, whatever, wouldn't be real loud. And he goes, "Dude, this is really sounding good. I want you to do the acoustic for a cure this year. And I want you to use this kit." I go, "Okay." He goes, "Otherwise, we bring in this electronic kit because everybody plays too loud and the drummers piss me off." So I was like, "No problem." And then he goes, "Yeah, it's going to be Dave Mason from Traffic." And I'm like, "Oh, Traffic." Traffic was one of our all-time faves. So the point is that got canceled. So that was 2020 May got canceled. The last time I played on stage in front of people, I mean, I've done studio work and stuff, was October 2019, the birthday bash, which was it was the Wabos. It was like a reunion. It was awesome. We killed it.
Yeah.
And, so a couple weeks ago, I played the acoustic for your cure with Sammy again. This time with Vic and Mona, because Mikey had some sort of surgery. I guess I shouldn't get into all that. But Mikey was doing some personal stuff. I don't know. No, he's okay. Everything's good. And Jason wasn't available for whatever reason. Anyway, so 2 weeks ago, I played with Sammy, Vic, and Mona for a benefit. It was the first time I played in over a year. And I thought I'd be nervous, but God, it was so much fun just to talk and see people and hug without being paranoid. Yeah. But to go back to your original question, I bought this house that I'm in right now in 2019 and early, like April. And I spent 10 months with my new son-in-law, who's a contractor, and we remodeled it. And it took like 10 months. And thank God that was done before COVID and, like wood prices and all that kind of crap. Yeah. So we got in just under the wing. So during COVID, this is the long answer here. During COVID, my new wife, my third wife, and my soulmate, Julie, we have this new property that we need to decorate and landscape. So I've been doing like manual labor for the whole 2020, and I lost a lot of weight, and I'm sore, brother.
Yeah.
You've worked with Robert Barry and Gary Peel in Alliance for numerous years. What does Alliance have going on for the future endeavors here? What's going on?
Well, I'll tell you what. It's funny you should ask that. We have tentatively booked a session for July this year, and Gary is coming out. And I live in Southern California, and Robert Berry lives in Northern California, which is no big deal. So Gary will come out to the Bay Area. I'll drive up to Robert's, and we'll get together. We've already got some songs. Robert sent a really cool song named Face of Justice. I think that's the working title. Don't steal it. And Gary and I worked it up like Zoom, like we Zoomed each other.
Sure.
So the song's arranged and everything, but we've only got one new song that I know of finished. And then, no, actually we have two. But anyway, we're going to get together with a bunch of ideas, and I'm going to put down my hammer and saw and try to come up with some music.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah. How has the writing for Alliance evolved since you guys started in 91? So I think you have a couple of...
Okay, you're a little further away. Did you say how has the writing evolved?
Yeah, for Alliance.
Well, I'll tell you how it's evolved for me, and I don't want to sound, what's the word? I don't want to say narcissistic. That'd be too heavy. I don't want to sound self-centered or self-serving, but since this band's been together, now we've only played live once, but we've made 5 albums so far. It's been a labor of love. It's been we've all been in our own projects, like me with Sammy, Gary with Boston. So in our off time, we did these records, these albums and stuff, and we primarily did them with independent labels, like in Europe and Japan, right?
Yeah.
So they're not really getting airplay in the United States. But anyway, how's it evolving? Well, for me, I've gotten writing credit on a couple in the beginning, but since this band's been together, I've actually written 3 songs myself, and then Robert helped me finish them. And the last record we did, I actually wrote a tune all by myself, like guitar and everything and lyrics, which is really kind of new for me. So that's me evolving. And they're really encouraging. Robert is so talented. It's intimidating when you're in a room with a guy that plays 50 instruments, produces, writes, whatever. And he's like, oh, bro, David, that's really a good lyric. Let me hear more. And I'm like, so I wrote a song called The Real Thing on the last record, which I completely brought them the song, which that was the first for me. Mm-hmm. The other ones I had bits and pieces, but I don't think that we've really changed our songwriting approach that much, but when we first got together, it was like the early 90s and grunge was just happening. Our stuff was probably a little bit more long hair in the early days, or big hair, I don't know how to put it, but I think it's a little bit more, how can we say, I don't know, I think it's a bit more soulful, a little bit more rootsy, not quite so formulated rock. Not that we were formulating, but it doesn't sound, we kind of don't really try to say, okay, let's write an Alliance song. Everybody's got different ideas. Some stuff sounds, I don't want to say country, nothing really sounds country, but it may sound alternative or, hard rock, or it may sound punk. We've got a lot of influences, so, it comes out the way it comes out. So that's kind of fun. And if you're going to have a band like this that isn't really on a record label with a salary touring, why not just write what you feel like,
Well, for sure. We've had Gary and Robert both on the podcast years ago. But you've worked with those two guys, like Jeff said, since 91. Can you kind of talk about the origins of Alliance and how it's all kind of worked out and came to fruition way back in the early 90s?
You haven't heard this story? I'll tell you.
We have not.
Interrupt me if there's any repetition here because I'm long-winded.
Sounds good.
I appreciate you guys working on my time schedule. I don't want to go and bore you with the details, but it's nothing serious. It's just it would be nice. The fact that we're starting now at, 4:30 my time, that's perfect, Anyway, you asked me about the fruition and the beginning and the kind of the
origins.
The birth,
yeah.
The origin. Okay. All right. Well, here's the deal. at the time, Sammy was in Van Halen. Gary was in Boston, knee deep, and Alan Fitzgerald was no longer in Night Ranger, and he was itchy to do something. So Gary Peel and Alan Fitzgerald approached me about putting together a band. Even though Gary, like Boston is the kind of band that they make every 3 or 4 years they do an album. Anyway, so he had time off, and he had a lot of song ideas, and I was working in like literally four different bands. I was just, I hate to say in survival mode, but when you're a musician, you're always in survival mode.
Yeah.
But I wasn't in a quote unquote big band, but I was making decent money, and I was recording. I was staying busy and actually staying very active. I became a better drummer after Sam joined Van Halen because the pressure was on to play with different people. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Anyway, so we got together, and bear in mind that Geffen Records was still interested in the band, Sammy Hagar Band, so that when the band broke up and Sam went on to Boston, they kind of respected me and Gary and the other players. And in fact, John Kolodner, he's kind of like the younger, more hip Clive Davis type character. I don't know if you know who Kolodner is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, so he was trying to help me and Jesse Harms and Bill Church, Gary, whatever. But Gary was in Boston, so he was already set. But there was, it started out with me, Gary, and Alan Fitzgerald, the bass player from Pablo Cruz, and this female singer who was just beautiful, had a great voice, named Amy Cannon. And I'm going to really dig into some whatever. her boyfriend was a guy named Paul Taylor who played keyboard with Alice Cooper. You've heard of him. No, of course. Anyway, and Paul Taylor and Gary Peel were friends, and that's how we hooked up with Amy. Said, "Hey, Amy'd love to work with you guys," or whatever. So we went in the studio and recorded a demo with the bass player Bruce. I think he's passed away. From Pablo Cruz. You've heard of Pablo Cruz.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, anyway, and the bass player was killing. So it didn't really gel. We had like a small budget, and I won't name names or go into the dirt, but, certain people didn't like certain people and whatever. And we had a hard time. The female singer thing didn't really jive with what we were trying to do, if you can dig it. Yeah. I'm not sexist. It's just the material, you got to write a certain way for a man or a woman. I mean, it depends on the song, but most of the time it's going to be different if you have the opposite sex or a different sex. Hell, a transgender. Hell, I don't know. What am I saying? Oh, people are laughing. People either laughing or pissed off at me. I'm pretty open-minded. Anyway, so then we had a guy from Boston that Gary knew, I can't remember his name, who was a guitar player, and we were going to maybe have him play bass because he could. He was a good singer. He's kind of like Sting. And that didn't work out. Fitz and him kind of bumped heads. I'm glad I don't remember his name because I can say this. So check this out. When Sammy Hagar joined Van Halen this is a couple of years prior to, John Kolodner from Geffen Records, the infamous, said to me and Harms, "Hey, you ought to go check out this guy named Robert Berry." I can't remember if he had already been with Keith Emerson, with the Three. Mm-hmm. He could have, or he couldn't have. I don't remember. I apologize. Usually my memory is really good. But this was like 1986 or 87. And when did Robert Berry with Emerson be on the radio? Do you remember what year that was?
Was that 89, I believe?
Okay. That would make sense. that would make perfect sense because I played the Bay Area Music Awards with Sammy, and Robert was there with Carl and Keith, and we all took a picture together. Anyway, yeah, and at the time, I was just, I think I had just recorded I Never Said Goodbye with Eagles Fly and Give to Live and whatever. Anyway, I digress. So anyway, I said, hey, I know a guy through Geffen Records, through Kolodner. Jesse didn't really buy into Robert, but I remembered him being really talented, and he played bass and he sang. And we had a guitar player, a keyboard player, a drummer, and no singer and no bass player. I mean, people can sing backup, but you know what I mean? We didn't have a lead singer. So I had Robert and Fitz and me get together with Gary in Sam's studio up in Mill Valley. Sam was on the road. He trusted me and Gary. He gave the keys under the mat. Hey, did I say it? Oh, shit. No, take that off the air. No, I'm kidding. Things have changed then. But anyway, we used his studio to record, which Sam and I did all our demos in for all the other records. So I knew how to run it. Me and Gary knew how to. It was like a 16-track reel-to-reel, if you can believe that. This was 1991 or so. Good God. Anyway, so it just clicked. We like laid down 3 or 4 songs. We made a demo in Sam's basement studio, and Robert's voice sounded great. He had a ton of material. Fitz had material. Gary had material. I didn't really have any songs, but I knew how to come up with the shit, you know. So, anyway, that's how it started. And from there, we started, like emailing each other material or sending, JPEGs or whatever, or MP3s. I remember back then, if I had that was before the internet. We'd send each other CDs in the mail. There was internet in 1990. What am I saying? God, it was rough. How did we live? Yeah. But anyway, we did that. That's how it formed. So it really was out of necessity, and I happen to remember Robert being pitched to me by John Kolodner, and and we actually. Now, because Fitz was in Night Ranger, and their manager, Bruce Cohen, was the Doobie Brothers manager and Night Ranger's manager, that was the person that we courted to manage Alliance. And then, literally, as we finished our record and we're ready to make our pitch, Nirvana came out, and I hate to say but the truth, our style of music all of a sudden became dated, overnight. Yeah. So record companies weren't interested in investing in a new rock band, and we were kind of like a super group with nobody really being super stars. We were all people that had played with Sammy Hagar in Boston and Keith Emerson and who else am I thinking? Yeah, well, all that. But it wasn't like a super group, but it was like super sidemen, But
with that being said, thoughts and theories of the supergroup. Alliance is obviously it's deemed as a supergroup. That being said, is supergroups that they have the history of the one-off or the 2 albums and they're done. Right. You guys have been able to keep it going throughout time. What has been the secret recipe of keeping this supergroup alive?
I'll tell you what keeps a supergroup alive. First of all, having gigs with other people, because you don't gotta there's no pressure. Yeah. Follow me. So it was a labor of love, and I'm not being sarcastic. It basically, we really like each other. I've really grown to love and. Robert's like a brother, and Gary's the shit, Fitz is no longer active with us, but Fitz is a brother too. And, Robert is a tremendous musician. He can play decent drums, actually very good drums, but I don't want to give him too much. He's I would say a good guitar player, an excellent rhythm guitar player, excellent bass player, phenomenal keyboard player, classically trained pianist, vocalist, He plays the flugelhorn. No, not really. But he does play every instrument in a rock band. Everyone. He makes records by himself. He's made multiple records playing drums, guitars, bass, keyboards, and singing all the parts. So he doesn't need us, but he loves the interplay, and we all inspire each other. So what keeps it going? I think because it's fun. There's no pressure. We don't have to answer to anyone. I mean, we do a little bit. When we finish the record, we send it to certain people that are going to pay us for, at least we'll break even. You know what I mean? We'll pay. It'll pay for the studio time. We'll put there's not a lot of money in it. I don't know, 10, 20 grand. When you think about spending 6 months on a record and everybody getting $5,000 or $2,500 or, maybe I'm being too candid, but we're not doing it for the money, but we do want to be able to break even or at least pay the bills on the studio time and just travel, etc. But it's just fun. It's a labor of love. And I got to say, Robert he's the one Robert and Gary spearhead this more than me, although I'm there 100%, but they'll, Robert's way busy. He has his own studio and production company, and he's got to move stuff around for us to record. So he's being very benevolent and generous with his time to do it. But, he's probably the primary writer. So that's the way it is. You just got to do it.
Yeah. You got the next one, John?
Yeah, I'm going to take you in the Wayback Time Machine. So I read prior to Sammy joining Montrose, you played in a band with him, a band called the Justice Brothers. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you met Sammy?
Well, I'll tell you, I've had some interviews this last couple of years, so I'm getting better at being concise. My wife, I know I've really kind of moved around, but this is just kind of fun. My wife listens to me from the other room. She goes, "David, you got to get more on point, man. These people are trying to get, you're." I go, "Hey, man, I'm having fun. If they can tell me to shut up, they won't." Okay, Justice Brothers. Let me just say this: I started playing drums. I got a drum set on my 15th birthday. It was all a fluke. Somebody gave me a pair of sticks. I started beating on things like a million other drummers. And my best friend had a guitar, and we had a pretend band. It was just me, him, and a keyboard player that were living on the same street, literally the neighborhood in San Bernardino. Well, that band turned into Youngblood. That was my first band. And we were like the Rolling Stones, the Yardbirds, and the Animals. Those were the main groups that we copied. Yeah. And a lot of bluesy stuff. But I love the Stones. I love the Yardbirds, Jeff Beck and Eric Clapton, Jimmy Page. So that band, we sort of were together for 2 years. I started getting really good. I mean, I started learning how to play drums. It was just all by accident and by ear. So a friend of mine that I went to school with said, "Hey, there's a really good band in town, older guys 23 and 22, and they're looking for a drummer. You ought to go down and check it out." So I did. I don't want to say I auditioned, but I just jammed with them. And I was just barely 17. I was 16. It was I was 16 going on 17. I was a junior in high school. And it had 3 guitar players, a bass player, and me. So you can imagine the egos with 3 guitar players back then. But we were good. We played Buffalo Springfield, Jimi Hendrix, Otis Redding. We were really well-rounded, cream, everything. We played a lot of English stuff and American R&B, which I love because I grew up playing black music, I listened to it, I should say. I grew up playing the Stones and stuff. Nobody could sing like the Beatles, so we were the Stones, Anyway, the guitar player in the band that got me the gig bumped heads with the main guitar player, a Mexican guy named Jesse Llamas, who was really loud and he was the leader. So Eric Fields said he was going to quit. So Eric's brother, Barry, was good buddies with a young Sam Hagar. And so Sam and Barry came to our rehearsal without Eric, and it was just bass, drums, and 2 guitars, which is plenty. We were loud. I'm deaf today because of it. And we jammed, and Sam stood there and checked it out. Now, I've told everybody this in a story, so I'm going to tell you. I'll never forget. Sam had Jeff Beck chukka boots, a pair of straight-leg Levi's, a white T-shirt, a double-breasted brown pinstripe jacket with a roach clip on the collar, on the lapel, and he had an afro like Eric Clapton on the first Cream record. And I go, man, that guy looks cool. He really looked cool. He was like 20 and a half. He was almost 21. And I remember no one told me he was coming to check us out, or, I didn't know who he was. He didn't have a guitar. He just stood there and listened to us. And afterwards, the lead guy, Jesse, the big Mexican guy, when I say big, he was big. He was tall, he was like a little heavy. And he played louder than shit. And I've never heard anybody use distortion like that. It was so awesome. My first band, they didn't really get good tones. You know what I mean? It was like Fender guitars, like surf music almost sounding. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so this guy could blow. He had like a fuzz tone. It was like, wow, we were playing Hendrix and shit. I was just happy. Anyway, I go, who's that guy? And he goes, well, his name is Sam, and he wants to join the band. And I was cocky. I go, what can he do? And he goes, well, he sings and he plays guitar. So Sam, are you ready? Yeah. Auditioned for my second band. Now, when I say I don't mean it was my band, but it was the second band I was in. Yeah. And he auditioned. It was Jesse Yamas, Mike Lofi, me, and a guy named Benny Mosteller was the bass player. And we were called the Mobile Home Blues Band. And Sam auditioned, and he played Sunshine of Your Love by Cream, note for note. And I was like, can I swear on this thing?
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, fuck yeah, you're my man. And then we played Outside Woman Blues, dun, 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 dun. Anyway, Eric, that's a cover tune, but Cream covered it. But anyway, from that point on, Sam and I were like brothers. He was like my older brother I never had. We smoked our first pot together, at least mine. I'm not a pothead, but we laughed. I had a good time as a kid. And we listened to music. We both loved blues. We listened to all the blues records, like B.B. King, Albert King, Freddie King, John Mayall and the Blues Breakers. Sammy really dug blues. Yeah. He really dug what's the band? All Right Now, Free, and he dug Procol Harum. He was very ethereal. He wasn't just like glam rock, or back then, what would it be? I mean, he dug the Stones and shit, but he was really pretty artistic. It was like he was digging on some stuff that was a little bit, what am I trying to say?
Eclectic.
Yes, that's the word. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I am older than you, but I do have a mind. But anyway, so that band, the Mobile Home, got me and Sammy connected. Now, Sammy turned 21, and I was 17. So there was a couple-year period where he went off and was able to play bars. He had a wife and a kid. He had to make money. And I was still living with my mom and dad. I was like a teenager going to school. He used to pick me up for rehearsal in his car. I didn't have a car. He'd pick me up for band practice. It was like, all right, bro. I wasn't bro back then. It was like, come on, Dave, we'll be late. Oh, okay. You know what? I got to mow the lawn first, whatever. Yeah. So we were like childhood friends almost, like young anyway. So he did his thing, went back to New York, and he tried, doing this and that in like 1971 or 70. He came back, knocked on my mom's door and said, hey, I'm back in town. I'd like to start a band again. Are you in? And I was kind of going through some changes. I quit doing drugs. I wasn't like a drug addict, but I was kind of like just partying too much. And I wanted to clean up. Like I said, I wasn't addicted to anything. I never did any hard drugs. I just trying to I was like graduating from high school, and I felt like a loser I didn't really have direction. And music I did it naturally. I was good at it, but it was almost like the way I was raised. Music wasn't a real job. But Sammy pulled me out of that, and we formed a band called The Big Bang. and we could play like after hours places because I didn't be 21. And then finally I had an older brother and I got his driver's license, and in California they used to give you a temporary license with no picture. So we, Robert Lauser was my older brother, so I was Robert Lauser, and I was able to start to play bars. And the Big Bang morphed into the Justice Brothers. We got the hottest keyboard player in the area, and we were a trio at first, me, Sam, and Jeff Nicholson. And then we got a guy named Al Shane who had like Leslie's, and he was louder than crap, and we could play like Procol Harum and sound like a record. And Sammy was wanting to write songs, so we actually had like 5 or 6 songs, and we did a couple gigs in Riverside, in Riverside, San Bernardino, like opening up for Johnny Otis' show. You probably never heard of him. Or we opened up for, who did we open up for? But we did a couple concerts. Oh, we opened up for Long John Baldry, and this is like 1970, brother. I mean, like you weren't even born yet. But anyway, it evolved, and during that time, when I was too young and Sam was out gigging, he played San Francisco doing like bar bands, backing up like soul bands like the Shirelles, Coasters, and he met a guy named Don Pruitt, who was the manager, get this, of Basin Street West. He also managed Richard Pryor. That's his claim to fame. Anyway, Sam was like, when the Justice Brothers start showing like we had our shit together, Sam was like, we got to go to San Francisco. That's where it's at. Now, this was like 2 or 3 years after the Summer of Love. So we moved up there as a band. This is a long story. I don't know if you have time for this, but
we have time.
We were playing 5 nights a week in San Bernardino, a place called the Nightclub, and we were packing it out. We were playing rock and original materials. It was like awesome. And then we would quit. We would be done Saturday night. We would drive all night to San Francisco, load our equipment in to this place called the Pepper Tree Lounge. We got the audition. I won't go through all that. So Saturday after the gig, we'd load our gear up and drive all night to San Francisco. The club owner let us load in like at, I don't know, wait, did we do that at dawn? No. We woke up the next day. We packed up our gear, woke up early, drove to San Francisco, loaded our gear in, played the night. I'm talking like 8-hour, 9-hour drive, load in, grab a snack, play all night, leave the gear, go to Don Pruitt's house, which was a bachelor apartment, and 4 guys crash on the living room floor in the Haight-Ashbury, and like we'd draw straws, we'd get the couch, and we did that for like 6 months. We did that for 6 months, and we literally, and then we'd play Sunday and Monday off night in San Francisco. We're trying to, get a foothold. And then this is no bullshit. We would drive after the gig at the Peppermint Tree. We would literally load up. We'd draw straws again. I'd love driving. I'd drink 1 cup of coffee, and I was good to go. So at 2 a.m, I would drive from San Francisco to Riverside, San Bernardino, crash, wake up on Tuesday, like we'd have, I think, a day off. Yeah, we played Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So you had 1 day off, and then we'd go back to work again 4 nights a week at the nightclub in San Bernardino. We did this like, I don't know how we didn't get mononucleosis. It was just, but we were young, and we really clawed our way. And then the Justice Brothers finally started getting popular in San Francisco. We got a couple good gigs. We moved up there permanently. Then we were playing at a place called the Wharf Rat Tavern. A mutual friend of ours from from the Riverside, it's called the Inland Empire. It's like San Bernardino, Riverside, Colton. A mutual friend, John Blakely, who was in a band called Stoneground, told Sam, hey, Ronnie's leaving Edgar Winter and he's looking for a singer. And Sam just knocked on his door, Ronnie Montrose, and basically, Ronnie passed. He goes, you're a club band guy. I need like a real guy. And Sam said, look, this ain't what I do. This is how I make a living. Check out my songs. And he showed him Bad Motor Scooter and then Make It Last. Sam had those songs written. Now, the Justice Brothers at the time really they kind of didn't really think hard rock was happening. And I was a bit of a snob myself. I wanted to be I was kind of more attracted to like funk and jazz.
Yeah.
So we were kind of going different ways. Sam and I remained friends, but I really wasn't, I hate to say it, but like in 1973, I was more into Dave Garibaldi, Tower of Powder, or I was into James Brown and Clyde Stubblefield. I wanted to be that kind of drummer. I wanted to play R&B. And, I was a white kid, and I wanted to be in a rock band, but it had to be funky. So I really wasn't cut out for what Sam wanted to do. We were friends, and the band was just a club band, So when Sam joined Montrose, it turned my head around when I saw what he did, and that first record was funky. I go, damn, that record's kicking ass. Kind of turned my head around, and a few years later, Sam heard me play, and he saw that I was getting my rock shit back, and then I joined his band, his band, not Montrose. Yeah. So that's the short, long story, but the Justice Brothers that was Sam's stepping stone. He, just by accident, I don't want to say accident, but like, if we hadn't moved to San Francisco and got established, he was right. It definitely wouldn't have served his career nor mine,
Oh, yeah. That's a great prelude to the next question here is, you were part of Sammy's three most iconic albums, The Standing in Hampton, Three Lock Box, and VOA. Can you kind of talk a little bit about the similarities, contrast about the creation of those three albums and the recording process of them? How did it all work out? I mean, was it pretty much the same formula? Because those albums are killer.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, and I'm very proud of Standing Hampton. That was the first record I made I shouldn't say that. I made some, small-time demo records that never saw the light of day. I had recording experience. It's not like I never set up a drum set and take one. But that was the first record for me with a real producer and a star like Sammy. It was really exciting and scary. So what happened was, I'll tell you, if I still have time, I'll start at least with the first part, and I'm willing to talk with you guys again.
Yeah.
Just if you want to.
You have what, about 15 more minutes to go here, or how much?
What time?
We're about 7:00 our time right now.
Don't let me go past 7:30 your time. I'll try to squeeze this in, but I can squeeze another. Oh, because this is too much fun, and I can the people, they're not going to be pissed at me. I'll tell them that you guys forced me. Let's just I'll try to do this, but the cutoff point is the half hour. You follow me?
Well, I tell you what, we have until about 7:25 because we have another interview after yours, right at 7:30. So
well, there you go, brother. Yeah. Then I better get going. Okay, here's the deal. So I auditioned. It's 1980. Yeah, it's 1980. I was in a band called Toys. We were trying to get a record deal. Sammy actually was going to produce our record. I won't go into the timeline, but that band broke up, and I was scuffling. In fact, I got in another club band, and I was making money. I was like, I'm getting out of debt. And during that time, like when you make a decision and make a life change, and, like you get kind of like, I don't know what it was. I was like 28 or 29 years old, and I thought to myself, if I don't really get something going by the time I'm 30, I'm going to either go to school, I'm going to do something. I got to do something, because I still had that voice in the back of my head. Hey, music is fun and you love it, but it's not a real job. I was all through my 20s. I was playing clubs. I was in local bands that were really popular and great musicians, but I wasn't really taking it seriously. I was really having fun with a lot of girls and playing good music, but it was like just kind of it was a long party. Yeah. So all of a sudden things got serious, and I started the Woodshed. I started to get my books out and go through the rudiments. I started like working with the metronome. literally. Now I'm a late bloomer because I joined Sammy's band. I auditioned for his band at 29. Think about that. I didn't look 29, but and I didn't feel it. But I always tell people that when they go, "You're old. How old are you?" And I go, "Look, it's not about your birthday. It's about your death."
Yeah.
Check this out. You ready for this, boy? It's not your birthday. It's your death day. If you live to be 90, what the fuck does it matter if you were, if you're 60 years old when somebody's 50 and they're dead,
Amen.
But anyway, that's kind of salty, I know, but I had to say it. Anyway, so here's the deal. I'm kind of like getting my money together. I'm sort of like regrouping. I'm starting to woodshed. It's almost like it's going to sound corny, but the universe opened up. I started getting auditioned. I auditioned for Nina Hagen, the German singer. I auditioned, and like I got like, it was a cattle call. It was like 50 drummers outside of SIR, and I got like to the last two. And they picked another guy. I think Nina's boyfriend was thinking I was too good looking or something. I don't know, but I kid you not. But I like to think that's why I didn't get the gig.
Oh yeah,
in politics, right? But anyway, Sammy called me up, and this is like the summer of 1980, and he goes, "Bro, I know you can play. I saw you in Toys. I know you can play. I know you got your rock chops back." He knew that I'd kind of made a turn. And he goes, "Here's the deal. I want you to join the band, but you have to audition." Like he was trying not to insult me. And I said, "Oh, dude, whatever. Fuck yeah. I mean, am I too good to audition?" He goes, "The reason is I just want to see what the chemistry is like with the band," which makes sense. I never really played with Bill Church or Gary Peel, who... Bill's a card. Gary's the sweetest guy on the planet. Church is something else. I love him, but boy, he's crazy. Anyway, so I go up, and here's the deal. I don't know if you guys play or not, but if you don't really think you're going to get the gig, and you're just happy to jam with somebody who you think is really cool, and you're meeting a great band, I was just excited to play. Yeah. So I got on Chuck Ruff's drum set that was set up for him. I didn't even change it around. I sat all high and shit. And we jammed some stuff, and Sam showed me Fall in Love Again. And I'd been playing a lot of pop music. I really like Billy Joel. I was playing a lot of like in good club bands, doing like Queen and Boston and everything that was a hit rock, Foreigner, Aerosmith. I played all those songs, so my chops were good. It was diverse. So I listened to it, and I thought, oh, this needs that straight beat, kind of like Long Time or Feels Like the First Time, whatever. Just in my head, I didn't say that. I just blasted into Floor and the Floor, and they all looked at me like, yeah. And I was just having a good time. Then I went home, and Sam called me and said, "Bro, you're in." And then I got nervous.
Oh, yeah.
He sent me a cassette of their live show with Chuck Ruff, and everything was 1,000,000 miles an hour. I mean, it was like really fast. He played a really fast live set. Danny Carmossi would play with him too, and the shit was just fast. It was almost ridiculous. It was like a punk band. It was like the Ramones. Like there's a song called Love or Money. I may be crazy, but it goes dent. That was the tempo. Live, it was, I may be crazy, but I ain't no fool. So I practiced that shit like the live shit. And I get into the rehearsal, and they go, whoa, this shit's, you're counting this shit kind of fast. I go, dude, you sent me the live tape. And they go, okay, you could. So Sam, he cracked me up. He goes, look, learn it like the record, because when we get on stage, we're going to be jacked anyway. It's going to be fast. So we did a short tour. It was called Taking It to the People. I played 13 shows. Night Ranger actually opened up for 2 or 3. They were called Ranger at the time. And a few other local bands opened for us. And here I was playing with guys that had been on the road with either Montrose, Van Morrison, all these different people. Church was a pro. He was like a seasoned pro. I had never toured. I just played clubs. So I remember, like, in the wings, the drummers that were the opening band had more experience on the road than me or whatever. They'd be there with their arms folded like, okay, what's this guy got? It was so It was threatening, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we did that short tour, and I felt a little bit intimidated. I didn't really have my confidence. Then Sammy was on Capitol Records, but he was changing his contract, and he was courting Geffen, and John Kolodner was trying to sign Sammy. So between the fall of 1980 and the late summer of 1981, Sam and I, God, this is a long story. We went into the studio. I play a little bass and guitar, mainly bass. And he and I wrote. I mean, he actually gave me songwriting credit on one song because I had so much input. I didn't write, but I helped arrange and came up with bass parts and drum parts. The two of us, no kidding. I mean, Gary and Bill would come over once in a while, but I lived right there. I lived with him for the first 2 months. He put me in his spare bedroom. I was like couch surfing, you know. And we literally every day got up, recorded a new song, finished the song. He'd record it, the two of us, drums and guitar. Then he would sing to it, and I could hear the whole song. Then he'd go, "Look, bro, I'm going to go up and cook dinner. You put a bass part down." I literally put the bass to One Way to Rock, Sweet Hitchhiker,
nice,
a couple other songs, and then Church did the rest. And then we would jog. He lived on Mount Tam in Mill Valley, and we would jog for like an hour. He turned me on to running, which I loved. And then we'd come home, and he's a good cook. And we'd have wine, and he'd cook all this good shit. And we'd do it the next day and the next day. In fact, his wife would probably think, like, what are you, like, in love with this guy? How long can it be here? But he really took me under his wing. And I think, I'll say this about Sam publicly right now. I was insecure. I didn't think I was as good as he thought I was. But he sort of took me under his wing. He helped me blossom. All those parts on those records I came up with. You know what I mean? It's like I was humble. I was just happy to be working with my longtime friend, who at this point to me was a star. And like, I'm not worthy, you know. But he was so encouraging and like, bro, you're this is great, you know. So then we took that because there was so much time between him having a record contract. Standing Hampton, we had 27 songs demoed for that record.
Oh, wow.
So that record, to me, honestly, I think that's Sammy's best solo record overall. I think that had the most good songs on it. And part of the reason is, A, he was horny to really make it good with Geffen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he wanted to change his style. He wanted to be more radio friendly. And Kolodner kind of got behind that with him. You know what I mean? Like, Sammy had already proved himself as a great entertainer, hard rock. Mm-hmm. But those records were more like just, you know, a million-mile-an-hour kick-ass rock, where that's like Standing Hampton had radio-friendly material, you know. And I feel proud about being that, because I was playing a bunch of pop, rock, hard rock records in clubs. What do you play when you're in a club band? You play the fucking hits.
Exactly.
So I was playing hit records for like 7 years. So when I got that, he played me a song like Fall in Love Again, which to me is like a radio-friendly hit song. I kind of knew what to do, you know? And we just really formed a strong union as a team. And we call each other blood brothers. And his studio, we call it the Blood Bank.
Nice.
And instead of something being cold, like, you know, like our black friends, if you say something's cold-blooded, it's kind of cool. It's sort of like back then, it's like saying badass. Yeah. Like, whoa, that's cold-blooded. That dude's cold-blooded. So we just say, this song is blooded. So let's go to the Blood Bank and make some more, you know?
All right.
So anyway,
go ahead.
So Standing was literally... And then Keith Olsen produced it, who had just finished Pat Benatar, Hello, The Babies, he had recorded Fleetwood Mac, not Rumors, that was somebody else, but the album before, and Keith Olsen was just brilliant. And for me, if I have time, I'd like to stay on Standing Hampton. Again, now the one song on Standing Hampton that was recorded before that record was Heavy Metal.
Yeah.
And again, Kolodner, like a Clive Davies, was trying to put Sammy together with different writers. He did it. And a guy named Jim Peterick, who wrote songs for 38 Special and Survivor and all that stuff, really good songwriter. Sam and Jim Peterick wrote Heavy Metal for the movie. I played drums on it, and Gary and Bill Church played on it. Peterick didn't play on it, but he co-wrote it with Sammy. And we put that on. Geffen wanted that song on Standing Hampton, so we didn't. We recorded it with Roy Thomas Baker at Cherokee Studios in L.A. But then we re-recorded it with Keith Olsen because they thought it was a really good song and they wanted it on that record, which was a good idea. Anyway, so for me, Keith Olsen, first of all, brilliant. He was like a musician producer. He understood time. He was a bass player in a band called Music Machine. They had a song called Talk Talk in the 60s, which was really badass. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but Talk Talk, boom, boom. It had like really cool arrangement, drums and bass. In fact, when I met Keith, I go, dude, you were in the Music Machine. He goes, oh, shut up. That was a lame band. He was like, I don't want to. But anyways, so Keith had a stopwatch on his console, and so before I went into the studio, I knew I was going to be recording with Keith Olsen. I set up my roommates. After I moved out of Sam's house, his wife kicked me out. Not really. Jeff Watson and Alan Fitzgerald, and we were like a trio roommate. There were 3 rooms in this house in Mill Valley, and I sat up in the smallest room. I was the last guy to get there. And I sat up a practice pad kit and an old Seth Thomas metronome. I said, look, here's the stipulation for me to live with you guys. From noon till 4 every day, I get to practice. If you don't want that, I'm not moving in. They go, okay. They needed them. Night Ranger, they didn't have money. They all had different jobs or gigs. They were scuffling. They hadn't gotten signed yet. Fitz and I go way back, but that's too long, me and Fitz and Sam.
That's cool.
Fitz was from Riverside area. He was in the band back when me and Sam were in the Justice Brothers. But anyway, so me and Fitz knew each other from the old days. I felt like, here's another guy. It's like a brother. So I set up this metronome, and every song that Sam and I, demoed, I charted it out, and I practiced it 4 hours a day, all my rudiments, all my shit. Dude, I was so petrified and intimidated that I was going to be recording with Keith fucking Olsen. Pat Benatar's drummer was slamming, and the Babies drummer, Tony Brock, funky, big back, that guy, he played with Rod Stewart and stuff. He was just a monster, and these guys I really respected, whatever. When I went into the studio to do that record, even though I was nervous, I was on autopilot, and the first song we recorded that made the record was, I think, Fall in Love Again. And Keith, when he played it back, he hit the stopwatch, and every 4 bars, if I was more than 0.2 of a second off, like 4 bars was like 1 bar, I forget, was like 7.4 seconds, 1 bar. He'd hit it like 1, 2, 3, 4, click, tick, he goes, if 2 bars go by and it's more than 0.2, he goes, I'll let it speed up toward the end. My shit was like, I'm really sound like I'm bragging, but I was petrified. And he made me confident because I saw that my time was solid. And he kept saying, Sam, you're rushing. Play with the drums. I felt good. I was like, oh, good. So, I really could tell where the pocket was, even though I was nervous as shit. So that record, there were no click tracks. Those albums were done without a click track, And we were all excited. Sammy's really high energy. You know, it's easy for him to pick up the tempo. Me too when you're excited. But I knew that the microscope was on. So I'll tell you, there were 3 songs on that record that we played from top to bottom with no edits. One of them was One Way to Rock. That was us top to bottom. The other one was Sweet Hitchhiker. And I think we played, I don't know, I guess it really doesn't matter. Maybe You Can't Get Loose. That was top to bottom. Meaning like live, take 3, keep it. You know, no edits. Back then, they'd take a razor blade to the tape. Man, I'd watch that engineer do that. I'd be like nervous. Please don't screw this up. You know. You know?
Oh, that's awesome.
But anyway, it was just awesome. You know, it was an awesome experience. It built confidence. And when I heard myself on the radio, I was just like, I was freaked out. It was like, oh my God. The first song off that record was Fall in Love Again. And it did pretty good, you know.
Very good.
So, any other questions about this stuff? Otherwise, I'll just go sideways.
Okay, so we're gonna ask you one more question because we got about 10 minutes here. Yeah. So I kind of wanted to touch on Sammy's birthday bash. Yeah. It was canceled last year. Are you privy to the what's going on this year in Cabo for his birthday bash? Or will you be participating in the activities?
I'll answer the question. 2019, I think Sam, I'll just say this for myself. He loves us. I don't know, you know, he wanted the Wabos to play. He wanted in 19, and I honestly feel like it was magical. We were on fire. Every night was great. The band was so fresh. We hadn't played together in a few years. And Mikey came down and Jerry Cantrell and that kind of stuff. But the band, the unit, me, Mona Vic, with Sammy, it was so much fun, and I thought we were better than ever. So I think that really made Sam excited. He said, this before COVID, he goes, that's it. From now on, Wabos are doing at least 1 or 2 nights down here, you know. That's, you know, maybe the Circle. I don't know. And the fact that he toured all year with the Circle, he kind of wanted to change the pace. He didn't say that. That's what I felt. So then it got canceled. We were going to play. And can you hear me? I'm getting a call.
Yeah, we can still hear.
Okay. How many spam calls do you get these days? Jesus.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Anyway, so this year, 2021, I don't really know. And I don't want to quote anybody, so you can't hold me to it. But there's a maybe that the Wobbles will do it. And cool. There's a maybe. And like I said, you can't, if whoever's listening to this, I'm not saying for sure, because I asked Sam, he said, bro, it's too early to know, but, you know, yeah, we were killing it, and I'd love to do it again. Of course he wants to. So, you know, if it happens, cool. If not, hey, I'm cool.
Well, my wife and I are heading to Cabo for the birthday bash. We're going to buy.
I'm jealous.
We're going to invest in the lottery tickets for it if it happens. So we're going to be there to see you guys if you're performing. That is.
Oh, I know what Sam. I'll give you this much. Sam was saying to me, and I asked him a couple months ago about it because I did the benefit with him, and I asked him. I said, "Look, I'm not trying to push you. I'm just curious because I want to make plans with my wife and stuff. Do you think we'll do Cabo?" He goes, "Well, here's the deal. Here's what he said, and you take it from there." He said, "I'm not sure." Because I don't know where Mexico's at with the virus. And that was like 2 months ago. Because, you know, the government and everything, it may be, even though we're cool in California or in America, maybe they're not. I don't know. So I think things are lightening up. I don't know about you guys, but I've had all the vaccinations. Everybody in Sam's band has. It feels good to be safe, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Well, we're kind of coming out of our allotted time here. So this is how it's going to work. We have a couple episodes to release before yours. So we're looking at about 3 weeks, and we're going to release this episode. And when we do, you'll be the first one to get it. Does that sound good?
That sounds awesome. Really a pleasure talking to you guys. Yeah. I love doing this, and I apologize if I go down the wayward happy memory trail, but I have an incredible memory. And the problem is I remember too much stuff, and then I started thinking about it and want to talk about it. And my wife's in the other room rolling her eyes right now.
Well, we won't keep any longer. Like I said,
no. I don't mean you guys. I mean, I love to tell stories, so whatever. Yeah. Hey, if you want to do it again, let me know. If not, this was fun. Thanks, guys.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
If they ever take from you, then you plug out.